What's up, everyone? All right, so in this episode, I'm going to talk about recovering from loss. So right now, I am on a red streak. I'm on my fifth consecutive red day, was on Friday. It's the weekend right now, so I've got a little bit of time to kind of get some space between me and those losses. And I thought this would be an opportunity for me to record an episode on recovering from loss, because the reality is, for me, I have made well over $10 million day trading, and I wouldn't have been able to get to where I'm at today if I wasn't able to get really good at recovering from loss, because losses happen. You know, losers, obviously, for even the most successful traders, you're going to have losers probably 30% of the time. My accuracy is about 69, 70%. So not every loss is a mistake, but when you're in a slump, you have 5 red days in a row, or several red weeks in a row, or a red month, that definitely is a time where you have to reflect and look at what you're doing that's not working and try to make some changes. So my thought was that by recording this episode, some of you right now who are at the very bottom of your slump, you've been in a red streak for a while, that you can watch this and you can walk away with some actionable things that you can do to help you reassess what you're doing, right and wrong, and to get you back on a good track. So what I'm going to kind of do is I'm going to walk you through what my process is for dealing with these losses, and how I've been able to get myself on track whenever this happens. All right, so it's not really probably super necessary to get into the specifics of my current drawdown, because everyone's drawdowns are a little bit different. But one of the things that I look at usually pretty early on, so for instance, for me, I started with a red day on Monday. And what was interesting about that was I was already having a little bit of a choppy day. And, I had been up, I'd been red, I'd been green, I'd been red, been green, kind of like up and down, but never really to my daily goal, and also not to my max loss. But of course, that by itself, the fact that I was going sideways isn't really great. And then I jumped into a little bit of a wild card stock, kind of a high risk trade. And in the past, some of those high risk trades have played out well, but this one, it didn't. And I took a good size loss on it, and that put me below my daily max loss, just like that. Boom, done. So one of the things that I do adhere to is keeping a max loss. So I set mine at $5,000 on the day. So if I'm down more than 5,000, I'm done. Now, have there been times where I've traded past my max loss? Certainly, but I'm trying to be pretty good about cutting it at 5,000, and I did that on Monday. Then on Tuesday, I ended up taking a trade on that same wild card stock, which was probably not a good decision, but it had gone up quite a bit more. And so that in those 2 days, I kind of went off the rails. And then on days 3, 4, and 5, I was continuing to kind of grasp for straws, getting a little desperate to try to recoup losses and salvage the week. But unfortunately, the losses kind of got bigger and bigger. So the reason I say all that is because it's important to have a period or to have a moment to reflect, a process of reflecting on what you've done right and what you've done wrong. And I have a little journal that I use. So for me, I'll journal in that if I'm having like a really bad red streak or something like that. And initially, if I have a big loss on a single day or a really bad week, I can get really, really upset and really frustrated. And that's usually not because I just lost money, but because I feel like I made a mistake, because I feel like I took a trade that was just a bad decision. Usually that's what gets me upset personally. But once I get emotionally activated, once I'm upset, that's when I'm prone to make sort of that secondary mistake of chasing another stock and another and another. And, that's when things can start to spiral. And I used to call these snowball days, where, all of a sudden I made one mistake, and then my momentum would start to sort of increase like a snowball, like rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it sort of capitulates with this big, big monumental loss. And some of you may have experienced that, and I'm right there with you. I've been through that too, and it's super, super frustrating. Also, for what it's worth, me posting my recaps of these losses and these red days, I try to be very transparent about the fact that trading is hard. This isn't something that's really easy. It's not going to work for everyone. You have to be very resilient to be able to get back on the horse after getting knocked down so many times. And there'll never be a point in your career as a trader where you won't get knocked off the horse. I mean, it's just simply, it's part of this career, which is what makes it so difficult, is that every couple weeks or whatever it is, every couple months, you're going to get knocked down and you have to be able to get back up. So for me, part of getting back up and being able to brush myself off first is getting a little bit of separation from the emotion. Because initially I'm furious and, I'll say, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I'm so stupid. I called my lawyer. I asked if I could file a lawsuit against myself for defamation. I was like, I'm going to get some money out of this. He's like, no, it doesn't work that way. So, talking badly about yourself, it's not helpful and it's not going to get you anywhere. But that's part of sort of the grieving process, the anger of having a loss. So then once you get through that, at least for me, I kind of want to get back to the drawing board and look at, the carnage and figure out, okay, let's start to piece through this wreckage and figure out, where did I go off the rails? Identify when things started to go bad, which for this particular drawdown happened with a couple of wild card stocks. I had been doing really well for the previous, it had been since October. So October, November, December, January, February. So it's been like almost 4 months since my last drawdown. And I had been focusing on trading just the most obvious stocks each day. And that did mean I missed a couple of wild card moves, but in any case, that had been working well. So, I can see that that's where I kind of deviated and that's where things went off the rails for me. And then once I was off the rails, I kind of got into this sort of a little bit of desperation of trading stocks a little outside my strategy, and that made losses a little bit bigger until finally I was starting to trade a bigger size just to try to recoup some losses in 1 or 2 big trades, but had a couple more losses. So it could be very quick, but in any case, I think it's important to have a process of looking back at the wreckage and figuring out where you went off the rails. Because if you can identify that, then that kind of helps you be like, okay, I need to reset to that point. It's like in a video game. Like I need to load from my last saved point. The last time I was doing well. And the last time I was doing well was before I started trying to trade these wild card stocks. So I need to reload to right then. So you reload to then, and then that's kind of part of getting sort of back on track. So for me, I make a game plan, and my game plan for right now, after 5 red days, is all right. So starting on Monday, what I need to focus on is going back to doing what was working so well before, trading only the most obvious stock, keeping my share size moderate. Which again, these are all things that are very specific to me. You'll find what's specific to you, but you go back through and you ask yourself what was working before, and then I need to go back to that. One of the things that I have the benefit of is being able to look at my metrics and say, listen, I'm still the trader, even as frustrated as I am right now about this slump, I'm still the trader who's made, X amount over the last year or X amount since my last drawdown. If you're someone who's at the very beginning of your learning curve, you may not have that benefit. And that's why I encourage people to start by trading in a simulator and to not trade with real money until you first built that track record, because that track record serves multiple purposes. The one purpose is, of course, proving that you kind of know what you're doing before trading with real money. But the second purpose is that when you have your first drawdown, you're able to look back at those metrics as sort of a source of confidence. And, it's like an affirmation. You see that and you're like, I know what I'm doing. I can do this again. I will recover again. And I think that's really important. So if you don't have that, then, a drawdown could be an opportunity for you to press the reset button in a way, put the main account on hold while you trade in a simulator for 3 to 4 weeks to sort of build up a little bit of track record. Because it's important to have that, because otherwise you really don't know whether or not your strategy even works. If you just start and you just start losing money right away, you don't know, whether or not it works. One of the most stressful things as a beginning new trader is your first drawdown. Because when you have your first drawdown, you're going to ask yourself, wow, do I even know how to trade? Was everything I made in the last week or 10 weeks, whatever it was, 3 months, was that just a fluke? Was it just beginner's luck? But this is what you do. You look at the metrics. You say, what was I doing during that period that was working? What did I do during these last few days or whatever it was that caused the losses? And can I go back to doing what I was doing before? And so your recovery from that first drawdown, when you recover from that drawdown and you make new highs in your account, that I think is when you really know you've turned the corner. So since I'm in a drawdown right now, my process of sort of getting myself back on track, first reflecting on the wreckage, where did I make my mistakes, assessing what I was doing previously that was working, and can I kind of restore to that mode of trading what was working. Now, it's possible that there's been a change in the market. Market sentiment has changed, and the market's not as strong as it was before for that specific strategy, which happens. And so that may mean for a period of time, I can go back to trading what I was doing before, but I have to trade a little bit more conservatively. Maybe just 1 or 2 trades a day, maybe just a few trades a week, a bit more of kind of like being very precise on the setups I'm willing to trade, the highest quality, just to kind of bring down the frequency of trading a little bit. Because one of the things that's important is breaking the red streak and just trying to have a couple of small green days, because the more space you have between you and that loss, the easier it is for you to kind of find yourself sitting with the emotions. It's when it's really fresh, it can be really hard. So I usually will put myself into a bit of a trader rehab program where for the period of, whatever it might be, while I'm recovering, I focus on having the guardrails up, being very careful about what I'm willing to trade. So I kind of trade a little bit with training wheels for a period of time. And then once I feel like I'm starting to get some momentum back, the wind's at my back a little bit, I start to take the training wheels back off. And from a monetary perspective, usually, so if I draw down 10,000, I won't start to take the training wheels off until I've recouped about half of my loss. If I'm down 50,000, it doesn't matter. It's once I've recouped about half the loss, then I feel like I've kind of started to catch a little momentum and I'm moving back up in the right direction. So that's generally my process of recovering from loss. The trader rehab program that we have at Warrior, this is something that I developed out of this process that I was kind of naturally doing. And so I turned it into a curriculum and into a class. And there's actually, I'll put a link right down below if you guys want to check it out for a FOMO episode, fear of missing out. This is, we have a trading psychology team at Warrior where we talk a lot about these emotions because, what you can tell is a lot of these drawdowns are triggered by emotion. Maybe a little bit of greed and overconfidence of trying to take that wild card, then sort of stubbornness and taking it a second time, and then the desperation of not wanting to be red. When you're red, it's not a good feeling. And so the brain naturally tries to alleviate that discomfort. And the fastest way to do that is to have a winner, which means all of a sudden your quality standard drops. So developing awareness of these kind of habits, bad habits that a lot of traders fall into, is probably one of the first steps in being able to break out of those bad habit cycles. Because otherwise you'll just keep making the same mistake again and again and again. You have to develop awareness that you are in a sort of pattern that keeps resulting in these losses happening. But having said that, I've been trading for more than 10 years and I still have drawdowns from time to time. So this isn't a job where, once you kind of, get to a certain point, it'll stop happening. It will continue to happen. And I think that just speaks to the fact that this is a job that just requires a really good ability to be resilient, to get back on the horse, to be self-reflecting on, wow, okay, I made a mistake, and now I'm going to separate from that was a mistake I made to this is what I'm going to do to start to rebuild. So, check out that link down below for the FOMO episode. Focus on first assessing the wreckage. Where did you go wrong? What was working previously? Hopefully you have some metrics that you can look back on and you can say, wow, okay, over this past 6 weeks or 8 weeks, this is how much I made. This was my accuracy. This is what was working. And you can restore to that. Honest assessment of the condition of the market. Has the market changed? Or was it just your emotions? Maybe adapt to a changing market. put yourself possibly into a short-term trader rehab program where you focus on putting on guardrails, being very, very disciplined, trading less, trying to just build some consistency. And then once you've recouped about half of the loss, you can start to open things up again. And then you've got some momentum and hopefully you're on your way back to the highs. If you found this helpful, I hope you hit the thumbs up. I hope you share it with some friends. I hope you download that episode on FOMO, and I'll see you for the next one real soon. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.